Yes, guys, what is going on? So, how to stay lean on a bulk? These are my top 5 tips because there is nothing worse than getting too fat on a bulk for many, many reasons. One, big knock to your confidence, and two, it will hinder your ability to build muscle mass. So, let's get to it. Firstly, who am I? My name is Henry Gordon. I'm an online coach. I've been coaching for the last 6, 7 years now. I've also been bodybuilding myself for over a decade. So I've been through many, many bulking phases and I've got fat many, many times. So these are my top 5 tips to help you guys stay in great shape while you push your size up and add that lean muscle mass. Now, number one, and arguably the most important, is start the bulk in the right position, in the correct position, which means lean. You want to be as lean as possible before you start bulk because when you go into a calorie surplus and you look to put on muscle mass, you are going to gain a little bit of body fat. And that body fat that you are holding at the start of your gaining phase, of your bulking phase, is only going to increase, isn't it? So you can imagine if you start that bulking phase holding too much body fat, you're only going to get fatter and fatter and fatter. So in order to prolong your bulking phase and stay in great shape throughout the bulking phase, you want to start that phase holding the least amount of body fat possible. Also, your body is a lot more sensitive when you're holding less body fat. So your calorie partitioning and your insulin sensitivity is in a much better place, which basically means your body's ability to utilize food, carbohydrates and protein is much better. So with that, you gain more muscle mass. So that is why it's absolutely key that you start that bulk from a nice lean position. Next up, manage the surplus sensibly. You do not want to be adding too much food too quickly. For a successful gaining phase, if your goal is to keep that body fat as low as possible and put on as much lean muscle mass as possible, the aim of the game is to stay in the surplus for the longest period of time. It's not to create the highest surplus as quickly as you can, because the faster you add food, the quicker you'll put on body fat. Next up is manage the surplus sensibly. So the aim of the game with a gaining phase or a bulking phase is you want to stay in that phase for the longest period of time possible. The aim of the game is not to create the highest surplus possible, it's to stay in the surplus for the longest period of time. And if you add too much food too quickly, what happens? You get fat too quickly because your body does not like sudden change. So you want to make small increments to your calories at the right time. And with that, your body will be able to adjust accordingly and you'll be able to gain that nice muscle mass whilst keeping body fat as low as possible. Next one is a big one, a huge one. Avoid big off plan meals. I'd say this is one of the biggest mistakes you lads are making when it comes to your gaining phase. Now, having off plan meals or cheat meals, whatever you want to call them, it's absolutely fine to do that. They're important for socializing, just having a bit of a mental break as well from your plan. But it does not mean eat as much food as you want. It does not mean go to an all-you-can-eat buffet and stuff your face as much as you can. You need to keep your off-plan meals or your cheat meals within your calories. So if your calories are 3,000 for the day, then that cheat meal or that off-plan meal needs to stay within those 3,000 calories. So what you need to do is you need to bank calories. So removing meals from your day or even throughout the week. If you know that you're going out for a meal on a Saturday night, take 200 calories away Monday to Friday, and then you've saved up a nice 1,000 calories to then use for your off-plan meal. Big off-plan meals really ruin your insulin sensitivity as well. So when you do that, you're more likely to put on body fat, and that's not just for one day. That could, like, you could damage your insulin sensitivity for 2-3 days after, and your body's just not going to be in a very efficient, sensitive mode. So again, that's another reason why off-plan meals, they need to be kept not small, but they need to be sensible. You need to be mindful. As I said, huge influxes of carbohydrates and especially fat will just damage that insulin sensitivity, and it's just going to put you in a much more disadvantaged position. As well as that, digestion. You don't want to ruin your digestion on that day and for the next few days as well. Again, if you have a huge meal, a huge all-you-can-eat Chinese or a huge Domino's pizza with ice cream after and sweets and loads of shit, that is going to absolutely ruin your digestion. And it's not just going to be for that day. It's going to ruin it for the day after and potentially the day after that and even the day after that. So you've already lost from your off-plan meal. You've then lost half a week's worth of progress, really, because if your digestion's ruined, your body's ability to utilize the food that you're giving it is just it's not as good, and with that, you're just not going to see as much progress. Another one: do not get slack with the variables. So the variables I'm talking about are your steps and your cardio mainly. Also your food too. Like when you lads are in dieting phases, you get really strict and you're smashing your steps, smashing your cardio, being bang on point with your food, weighing it to a gram. And a huge mistake I see is lads go from a dieting phase to a gaining phase and they all of a sudden get slack. They start adding little bits of food here and there, missing steps, missing 5 minutes of cardio. And although that might seem okay at the time, it's really not, because that does build up. If you miss 2,000 steps a day, let's say, over a week, that's 14,000 steps. You're looking at a huge amount of calories there that you could potentially be burning. And all that's doing is putting you in too big of a surplus again. And with too big of a surplus, you're going to gain body fat. So it's really important not to get slack with the variables. Keep cardio in, another big one, and just make sure you're hitting those targets still. You're eating more food. You're in a gaining phase. You're eating more food. Don't then add extra food. Don't miss steps. Don't miss cardio. Stay on top of everything, and that way you stay in the perfect surplus. That's going to enable you to put on lean muscle mass whilst keeping that body fat as low as possible. And lastly, keep yourself accountable. So, having a coach is just absolutely game changing for a gaining phase. I personally could not go through a gaining phase without a coach because I need that accountability there. Everyone does. It's the absolute key to success. Now, if you don't have a coach, you need to keep yourself accountable. And the way I would do that would be weekly check-ins with yourself. You must weigh yourself. You must weigh yourself on a weekly basis. I'd weigh myself. Well, I personally weigh myself every single day, but I'd say at least twice a week in a gaining phase. And that way you can get a true gauge of your weight. And if your weight's, soaring up too fast, then you know that you're potentially in too big of a surplus and you can pull back down on that food. If you don't do that, it's a slippery slope. It really is. It's a slippery slope to getting really out of shape, because once that weight starts soaring in a gaining phase, you can't pull it back. You can't, unless you go back into a dieting phase, which obviously is incredibly counterproductive towards the goal. You want to, as I said, you want to stay in that gaining phase for the longest time possible, which means your body weight going up incredibly slowly. The faster your body weight goes up, the less quality that weight that you are gaining is going to be. And you want that weight to be quality. And by that, I mean lean muscle tissue. As well as that, photos, I would weigh myself at least twice a week and take photos, take weekly check-in photos, and then you can get a true gauge of how you're looking too. Because the scales will tell you one side of the story, but obviously visually is incredibly important as well. So I do weekly check-ins with yourself. But are you likely to do that? That's the question I'd ask you, because I've said that before in the past and I haven't done it, and I then haven't weighed myself for weeks. I haven't checked in with myself for weeks. Whereas if you have that coach there, you know that they're holding you accountable, and you can keep on top of things. So if you are going to do it yourself, make sure that you do actually follow through and you do stay consistent with it. It's absolutely vital, or you will turn into a big fat mess in no time. Now, I am offering a free discovery call to anyone watching this video. The link will be down below. These are just some of the results that I've achieved over the past year with my guys. We've got Wayne here, Brett, and Chris. And all of these guys have been through multiple gaining phases with myself and dieting phases. I've worked with these guys for Chris for around 6 months, Brett way over a year, and same with Wayne, way over a year. And obviously the results are pretty incredible. There is zero obligation to join my team on the call, absolutely zero. And the least you can go away with is a roadmap and some guidance to help you with your goals if you are going to go it alone. So yeah, that call is available for you, completely free. Be nice to have a chat with you, get to know you, and yeah, we'll go from there. I'll leave the link down below. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hope it helped, and yeah, plenty more to come.